Reserve. The root of all our evil, it begins with the Federal Reserve. Hey, yeah, well, let's go back in time when everybody was so proud of a man.
I'm Tommy Salmons. This is Year Zero. Today, I have the pleasure of introducing many of you to Drew of the Clean Libertarian Podcast. Drew is a recovering addict. We talk a lot about his addiction and the things he went through and get really into the philosophy of being clean and just living a healthier life. And we both share some stories and get pretty vulnerable here. But I think there's a lot in this that you'll really appreciate. As always, RyanBunting.com for all of your graphic design needs. That's RyanBunting.com. Ryan Bunting is a great anarcho-capitalist and libertarian. He's also a great graphic designer. He designed my podcast logo and Pete Quinones' podcast logo from Free Man Beyond the Wall. So go to RyanBunting.com for all of your graphic design needs. And while you're there, pick up a copy of his book, Project Manicore. As always, thank you, Tom Burton, for the music. If you know anyone looking for a virtual assistant or someone to do their administrative work, yet they don't need to hire full-time, contact me, TommySalmons@gmail.com. My wife is a virtual assistant, and I am assisting her in her endeavors in expanding her business. So get in touch with me, TommySalmons@gmail.com, if you or anyone you know needs an administrator that can do QuickBooks, paychecks, email services, scheduling, transcription, all that good administrative work that bogs down your day and keeps you from doing the things that actually make you money. That's TommySalmons@gmail.com. Enjoy the show. And I am here with Drew of the Clean Libertarian Podcast. What's going on,
man? Not much, man. I'm happy to be here.
I'm glad we finally made it happen, man.
Yeah, I am too.
It's been a work in progress.
Yeah.
It's like everything else while I'm out here in this fucking truck. If I haven't said it before, I'll say it again. I fucking hate this goddamn job. Been doing this shit fucking too damn long.
I guess if it was good, they wouldn't need to pay us, right? Like if it was fun.
Yeah, I guess, man.
That's the bitch of it, man.
That's what my dad always said. I'd ask him, how's work? Well, they wouldn't call it work if it were fun.
Right. It's kind of part of it, man. Part of the deal is, some days, man, I go to work, I'm like, shit, I should have went to college. Those college loans ain't looking so bad now, man. That might have been a worthwhile endeavor.
Might have been a hell of a trade-off.
Yeah.
Fuck. Yeah. I fucking hated school, though. I was horrible at it. I was good at it. I was horrible at being there. I was great at passing. I breezed by with a B average and didn't try to do anything except cause trouble. So.
Right.
But you wrote this really good article. So I kind of wanted to start there. You had it published at the Libertarian Institute, which I'm a part of. Hello, guys.
Right on, man.
Represent Libertarian Institute. I need to give me some shirts. I need to give me some Libertarian Institute shirts. I haven't even thought about that.
I would buy a Year Zero shirt. I would.
I'm going to make some. I am going to make some. Yeah. Yeah. I haven't figured out exactly how I'm going to do it, how I'm going to design it, but I am going to make some. I have some interesting ideas for doing. I might even use this the logo that Ryan made up for me. This because it pisses so many people off. I like the fact that it pisses so many people off. But yeah, let's get into this. Let's get into this article some. I really enjoyed it. I thought the way you approached the subject of addiction was unique
because you've been there. And if you don't mind, I'd like to talk about that some as well. But you started off talking about the 12-step process. So walk us through that process. Those of us that haven't been through it, aren't familiar with it, walk us through that process the way you did in that article. I thought it was really well, articulated.
Okay, so first off and foremost, we have our first step, and that is came to believe that we were alcoholic or addict, depending on what fellowship you're in, and that your life had become unmanageable. So for a lot of us who come in the rooms, crawl in the rooms rather, that isn't a hard leap for us to take. We pretty much knew shit was unmanageable when we were, carpet surfing, smoking grains of rice or pieces of drywall thinking it was crack, Like it's not hard to make that leap to say, you know what, things aren't very manageable in my life right now. And the next one, I'm going to have to, give me just a moment here, man. I want to pull it up.
Yeah, I don't have the article pulled up at the moment either. I just, I read it yesterday and the day before. I read it twice and I was like, all right, I think I understand.
Yeah. Okay. So we admitted that we were powerless of our addiction and our lives have become unmanageable. That's the first one. Second one is came to believe that a power greater than ourselves could restore us to sanity. So here's the very first mention of a power greater than yourself. And this is kind of one of those things that trips up a lot of people, especially those, you're from the South, I'm from the South. Like a lot of us come in with this misconception in our head that, there's that gotcha God waiting around the corner and somebody's going to knock us over the head with the Bible and, should have done better or whatever the case may be. But what's being referred to here, when we talk about a power greater than yourself, it could be the group of people sitting in front of you who have found freedom from addiction, who have found a new way to live and found a way through that. And that's exactly what I use. That was my very first conception of a power that was greater than myself, was this group of people who...
I had this, when I was reading that and you brought that up, the first thing I thought of was, I'm an agnostic. My wife is an atheist. She used to be a militant atheist. And one of the things I would always tell her was, don't discourage people from utilizing religion and the Bible and the utility of Christianity, no matter if you believe it or not. Don't criticize people for that and don't try to dissuade them from using that, because there's a lot of great wisdom there to be used. Yeah, and that's absolutely why I never fully embraced atheism, is because I was always like, there's a lot there I've learned, right, through the years. Whether I think it's, the Word of God or whatever I think it is, there's a lot of wisdom to be utilized. So whenever I was reading that, I was thinking of me telling her that, and I was thinking, when you're an addict, and like you said, smoking grains of rice. I mean, you had Hunter Biden talking about smoking Parmesan cheese, out of the carpet. And when you're going through that, you're dealing with something that's greater than yourself, at least in your life at that point in time. So you need something bigger than just your willpower to overcome it. You already know, like you said, by the time you enter that door, you already know I'm helpless to this cause. I can't do that alone. So you're already looking for a power greater than the power you're fighting. So it's got to be greater than yourself.
They call it being beyond human aid, and that when it comes to 12-step fellowships, there's spiritual, not religious programs. And they kind of come in on what you said. Here's how it was explained to me. Religion is the driver's manual. Spirituality is driving the car, right? So it doesn't matter what religion you came from, whatever. It's practicing these principles and putting in the work. And whether you're agnostic, whether you're a hardcore atheist, you have a space in the recovery community. And there's other people that are exactly like you the beauty of it is that whether you call your God Jesus or Buddha or whatever the case may be, it never comes into play in a meeting at no point in time. But we can learn from a great many things. I'll tell you, and I made a post about it earlier on Twitter or tweet, talking about having like 1,000 pinholes in my arm, bleeding all over the floor. I had a needle in my hand. I couldn't find a vein. And on the other side of that bathroom door, my entire world was falling apart. Everything I knew was crashing down around me. And I couldn't focus on anything except for how in the hell am I going to take the shot after the one I'm holding in my hand. That's powerlessness. So when you talk about needing something bigger than that thing, that can come in a lot of different forms. And for a lot of people, it's that meeting. It's that person who's like, you know what, I identify with what you're saying. And I found a way through. Right. And that's what we needed. Third step is we made a decision to turn our will and our lives over to the care of God as we understood Him. That's a little bit more on the nose. We're bringing up the God thing now. That turns a lot of people off, But for those who are really desperate and they get a hold of somebody. Now, you'll hear people who are in recovery talk about a sponsor. And what a sponsor is, it's just somebody who's worked these steps before and has a basic understanding of how the program works. And they're more or less a mentor, a confidant, a point of accountability, if you will. And if you get a sponsor and you talk to them about your reservation or your hesitancy to talk about the God thing, if you have a hesitancy, they'll explain to you exactly like I did in the second step, which is you can rely on the group. Your prayers can be whenever you share with your sponsor or the group. It doesn't matter. There's many ways to work this program. But in making a decision to turn my will and life over, I'm not actually doing anything just quite yet. I'm just acknowledging that, you know what? It looks like it can work for you. It looks like it did work for you. It might be able to work for me. And so now I'm taking that next step to work through this process with you. Am I going too slow? Do I need to speed this up a little bit? I don't want to bore your audience.
No, man. Going back to what I was saying a while ago about how this is bigger than you, one of the things that popped in my head, Machine Head. I don't know. Do you listen to metal at all?
Yeah, a little bit.
Yeah, Machine Head had a song called "I'm Your God Now," and it was about addiction.
Yeah, I see, man. Like that. Yeah. That's on the nose. Yeah. That's on the nose because, I can't tell you the point that it happened. I started out as a weekend warrior. I started out having fun. And it was a lot of fun until it wasn't. And I can't pinpoint that, But I can tell you that what happened, what started out as a hobby became a career. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And that career became a prison.
There's a lyric. I think it's in the song "Ghost Along the Mississippi" by Down. And he said, how did he say it? It started off as a hobby, became 10 or 12 or more. And he's talking about, because Phil Anselmo, who was the lead singer of Pantera, is the lead singer of Down. He had a heroin addiction for a long time. And Ghost Along the Mississippi is about that. And I mean, he's written a lot of songs about that. I'll send you some of the songs here in a little bit. He's got a great, really kind of bluesy, soulful song called "Learn from This Mistake." Oh man, it's powerful.
There's something about, I love music, and I especially love music of people who you can tell they've been there and they've done that. Mm-hmm. I dig stuff like that. There's this guy, he goes by Pat the Bunny, and he's got this song, and he says, "I want something more than apology to say when I look the world in the eye." Dude, there's something about that resonates so big with me. It's just like the guilt, the shame. Like when we come into the rooms, we're not coming in as somebody who, oh, we slipped up one time. Now maybe you got a nudge from a judge and that's the case. I don't know. But I know for me, I came crawling in. I had nothing. Nothing. I couldn't even come. Mama didn't even invite me over for Christmas anymore, man. Like, it was over for me, you know?
Yeah.
So I had this animalistic nature about me, and I don't know, man. There's something to having people who understand that, and whether it's a song, whether it's a poem or a story, but just being able to resonate with that, man, it still messes me up. I love stuff like that.
Yeah. All right. Anyway, roll through these steps, man. I'm sorry.
Okay, you're good. Okay, so I'm going to try to go a little bit quicker. Okay, so 4 is you make a searching and fearless moral inventory. What that means is you, whether you know it or not, you have a lot of resentments when you come in. You got a lot of stuff that you've done to other people and they've done to you. And what we do is we put this shit on paper. We write it down, you know? And writing it down, we go to step 5. Step 5 is we admit it to God, to ourselves, and another human being, the exact nature of our wrongs. That means you take your list you made in 4, you show it in 5, and you have some feedback. Okay? This helps you understand that a lot of the things that were driving you wasn't the drugs. It was never the substances themselves. It was the underlying shit. The fact that you did not have the coping mechanisms to deal with life. You know, that's that kind of like aha moment for a lot of people. Now, 6, 7, 8, and 9, you're pretty much saying, you're making an acknowledgement, you know, to your sponsor, but then you're also asking God to help. In writing that list out in 8 and 9, this is what a lot of newcomers do. They'll come in and they'll look at 8 and 9, which says, you know, we made a list of all persons we'd harmed, became willing to make amends to them all. 9 is we made direct amends to such people wherever possible, except when to do so would injure them or others. They see that and they think, oh man, I could just go out and apologize to people. Man, not knowing that we spent years and years and years saying, I'm sorry, time and again. When I came in the rooms, man, one of the first things I did after I saw that step, I called up an old dealer of mine. I kicked in his door, you know? I kicked in his door and I was like, hey man, I'm sorry I did that. He's like, man, you're a fucking asshole. Don't ever call me again. You know? And so the reason that it didn't work out the way that I thought that it would, but my sponsor was like, I didn't tell you to do that. He's like, you know, take a step back. You know, this is how we do it. We work these steps in order. And I came to find it out that working a 9th step didn't mean that I needed to cop to things that I didn't get caught for. It didn't mean that I need to go up and reopen old wounds. It just means that I need to start working on living amends where they're applicable, and then also paying back people that I owed if I owed them. Now that doesn't mean if I had taken a front from a dope dealer that I'll go and pay him back, because how he described it to me is like getting clean and trying to pay back a dope dealer is like going to a whorehouse and ordering a ham sandwich. He said, you don't do that, man. You leave that shit alone. Yeah. So that's 1 through 9. 10 is you continue to take a personal inventory, and that's just a miniature step 4. We talked about the inventory. 11 is prayer and meditation. And the most important step of them all, in my opinion, is number 12. And that means, in number 12, having had a spiritual awakening as a result of these steps, we practice these principles in all our affairs and carry the message to the still suffering addict. That means that my job now is to show other people how this thing works. And that's how the recovery community continues to go forward. Now, that's a very condensed, I could spend hours upon hours talking about each and every single one of these steps. But in a nutshell, that's what it is. And that's how it works.
Right.
So there's 1 through 12.
Okay, and so when you took on this project to write this, because this was not a short article, I imagine with your schedule it took you quite a while to really verbalize this. What did you think your goal in mind was? Were you trying to put the average person in the mind of an addict, into the life of recovery? How did you want people to respond to this?
This was when I first got introduced to libertarianism. I went about it the same way most people do. Started joining Facebook groups and, this and that and dabbling. And when I was very brand new, someone asked the question in one of these groups, in the libertarian society, what happens to the drug addicts? And somebody said Darwinism. And I was so offended by that. I didn't voice it, but that was like a gut shot, And it dawned on me that not a lot of people in the libertarian community realize that the 12-step recovery fellowship is the free market solution to drug addiction. It isn't connected to the state. They don't take any taxpayer dollars at all, zero funding from anybody but themselves. And they are organic in nature. It is peak charity. It is peak voluntarism. It is peak libertarianism. Here's a program that is teaching people who have stole and done bad things, to make ends meet or whatever, to use, to take personal accountability, to understand that they have agency, and to do well for themselves, to not rely on other people, to become a productive member of society. So that was kind of like my mindset, is like, how do I really lay out the case for the 12-step recovery process and display it to the Liberty community? And that was kind of the goal of it.
Okay, yeah, and I thought you did a good job on that in the beginning of the article. Like, I could see where you were going with it. You also, I think, there are libertarians, and I don't consider myself a libertarian, though I work with the Institute and with Scott and Pete and all those guys, and I love those guys. When I'm talking to them, I'll call myself a libertarian because they know what I mean, right? But when I'm talking to old Normie on Twitter, I don't call myself a libertarian. If they call me that, I'm not going to be like, oh, I'm not a libertarian, I'm an agorist, but, at the same time, I just don't, because of what it insinuates in so many ways. Most people that you run into on these groups are new, young libertarians. That's where, I might have run across that comment, see somebody say that, and kind of chuckle and be like, he's trying to poke at people. He's trying to, be an edgelord or whatever, and just be like, oh yeah, that's who this guy is, right?
Right.
Yet there is a certain amount of truth to it. You know what I'm saying? And whereas the 12-step program absolutely could and probably would exist in a libertarian society, there's no reason it wouldn't. We all know the stories of the people that had no desire to get clean or had no desire to stay clean. Okay? I have relatives, for instance, that are like that. They clean up, detox, they're clean for a year, 6 months, a year, 2 years, and then they're right back in it. They destroyed their entire lives, every relationship they've had, and it's so whenever I hear somebody say Darwinism, I think they're probably talking about those people, those people that you would have to violently coerce to get them to stay clean forever,
Right.
And we're just not into that. So I think if I could be a little nuanced, there's place in a libertarian society for both perspectives.
I guess so. I guess so. I'm not under any kind of delusion that if we end the war on drugs, that deaths will stop happening. They're going to happen, man. It's just people have been getting messed up at least on opiates since 5000 BC. This goes back throughout all recorded human history. So that funny little thing in between an addict's ears, you know, it's not going to stop whether you put them in a padded cell, whether you let them run free on the streets. You know, you simply cannot coerce the bottom that is needed in order to bring about that psychic change to seek recovery. I hate it. I wish I could wave a magic wand, but we couldn't. I don't think that there's ever a time when all of those people will be killed off because life continues to happen. I mean, when people get born, you know, there's 1,000,001 different reasons why somebody becomes an addict. You know, you can't just say there is no one poster child case. Well, avoid this and you can avoid addiction. It's just impossible.
I would suggest or encourage you to look into Portugal, like very heavily, and how they've handled things, and how the addiction rate has actually decreased with the decriminalization, because you're destigmatizing. So you're making it a medical condition. You're making it, you know, a way that people can seek help openly.
Right.
And I think you said you were talking about this some in the article about you don't have that ability here. If your buddy's ODing on the floor and y'all are all messed up, you don't want to call 911 because they're going to send the cops and arrest everybody. Right. So you make a trade-off, your buddy's life for your freedom. Right. You know? And I mean, I read that as, whoa, this guy's been in this situation, you know? Like, that's how I read it. Now, I can't speak for you. But
I mean, you're hitting on the nose. Yeah, I have. You know, I don't want to go into it, but yes, I have.
Yes, that's fine. That's fine. But where I was going to go with all this was, this destigmatizes it to a point, as you pointed out in the article. You can call 911 and the ambulance will be sent. No one's going to be forced to go into jail. You're not dealing with a criminal record for the rest of your life in this situation.
Yeah.
So,
and I've seen god awful shit. You know, I've walked into shooting galleries, and there's somebody, you know, flopping on the floor, and it's like, what the? Call 911. You're like, are you crazy? Like, you know how much dope we have here? You know, and they'll drag them off to the bathroom and put cold water on. Thank God they pop back up. You know, like they were fine, but. There's a lot of cases where that doesn't happen, you know, where you hear stories not all the time, but you do hear frequent stories about people being kicked out of a car in front of an ER and just left there, you know, and what? Now, here's the other side of it. I care deeply, deeply, deeply about addicts who need help and want help having the mechanisms available to them. Absolutely. I am not okay with forcing the guy across town who's always been straight edge, never even smoked a joint, forcibly paying for the guy, you know, the junkie across town to get treatment that doesn't even want it. What? I think public perception has to change in order to get that stigma. And I don't know what comes first. It's the chicken or the egg, you know, thing. You know, which came first? Is it the law that changed, or is it the public perception that changed first? You know, I need to look more into Portugal on that and see what kind of approval rating there was for the change in the law at the time, and as opposed to what there is now. But yeah, man, it's something to think about for sure. You know.
Yeah. I mean, let's get into you a little bit. So, you're in your 20s,
30s.
30s. Okay.
Yep.
Yeah, well, you look good for 30.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you.
I expected it.
The drugs pickled me, man.
Is that what happened? Because I expected you look. I expected a 30-year-old former addict to look more like me, old and beat up.
And I think they pickled me, man. Maybe it's the lighting in the room. Who knows?
Okay, so you're in your 30s. When did you start doing drugs?
So much of the focus of my podcast is to point out abuses of power and how bad things have gotten and the direction in which we're heading as a society. And it can be a real black pill I've partnered up with Richard Grove to offer my listeners an opportunity to sign up to his Autonomy Course. The Autonomy Course is designed for people looking for solutions, people that want to shape their own future, people that are not willing to be at the behest of large corporations or the United States government or the banking system. The Autonomy Course is designed for those of you who wish to have complete control of the reins of your life, who are looking to be successful, to thrive and not just survive, to provide for your family by utilizing your existing skills and learning how to market and sell those skills in order to be your own boss, or learn new skills in order to leverage that into a new career opportunity. So if there's a job out there you've been trying to get or you've been wishing you could get, but you just don't have the skills for it, the Autonomy Course is the place for you to start, to learn how to land that position, to learn how to market yourself better, to gain confidence, and to be surrounded by a community of like-minded people that will encourage you and help you along the way. So use my affiliate links and go check out the Autonomy Course. It could be right for you.
Did we break up?
I started.
Oh, okay.
The first thing I ever did was, I think we just got a little bit of a lag going. But
Yeah, a little bit.
first thing I ever did was weed. I was like 13, 14. But I was prescribed at the age of 15 Ritalin and Dexedrine. We there?
Yeah, I can hear you. It's a little. There was a little breakup, but it wasn't bad. I was checking my internet connection.
Okay, cool.
Yeah.
All right, right on. So the first thing I ever did was weed. That was like 13, 14. Soon after I was prescribed. This was like during the height of the Johnny B. Good medications, Adderall, Ritalin, Vyvanse, all those. And they put me on one called Dexedrine. And holy shit, like that was something. It's pretty much straight up meth. I mean, it's an amphetamine salt, but it is the daddy of amphetamine salts. Like, it'll put Adderall to shame. So, like, that was kind of like my real first taste on, like, oh, shit, I could take an external substance to fix an internal problem,
And what did they put you on this for?
I just couldn't get along with people at school. I didn't fit in well. I got into it with the teachers. I was constantly getting in trouble. It was just a troubled child is what they called me.
Yeah, I had a friend like that, and they put him on lithium.
I'm thankful they didn't do that, man, because my God.
Well, he never took them. He just sold them.
There's an entrepreneur right there.
Yeah.
There you go.
Last I heard, he was living in a condo on a beach somewhere.
I bet, man. Fortune 500 mentality right
Yeah.
there.
He sold them. I bought them. I ended up driving a truck. He fucking goes.
Isn't that something? Shit. Yeah, man. But yeah, so like that was kind of like, early on I got a taste for getting fucked up pretty much, man. And when I turned 18, I hit the streets and I did whatever, whenever, however. I think everything really changed for the worst whenever I discovered that whenever I could put these substances in a needle, I could go from where I'm at to where I want to be in a nanosecond. And I really, really like that, And when it boils down to it, people ask me, what's your drug of choice? And it sounds cliche and lame, but man, it's more. It's always been more.
That Alice in Chains song?
Just more, whatever.
That Alice in Chains song, what's your drug of choice? Well, what have you got? I don't go broke, but I do it a lot. Like, whatever. Like, just give it to me.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yep.
So.
Straight up, man.
Yeah. Yeah, and I mean, I don't... In Oklahoma, which you grew up there, right?
Yep.
So y'all probably saw a lot of meth.
Oh God, yeah.
Yeah, that's what Louisiana, Texas, we dealt with a lot of meth too. I never did it, but it seems that meth comes very easily and very cheap. And so it becomes just abundantly available. And that's part of why so many people get addicted to meth. Would there have been, I don't know if there's a way of saying it, would it have been different for you, let's say, had a drug like marijuana been legal and easy to obtain? Or what would anything have curbed your taste for the more addictive substances?
I don't think anything. No, because I always had a steady supply of weed. Like that was never a thing. I was always more inclined to go fast. You know what I mean? Like I like that go fast, the uppers. First time I did coke, I got a quarter paper, and the next day I blew a whole paycheck on an 8-ball. Like it was just like I really liked that. When I first got into the dope game, though, like meth was still relatively expensive. Relative. The guy I was getting it from early on, it was cent for cent, meaning that like you get a gram, you're paying $100. Nowadays out here, from my understanding, you can get a whole 8-ball of meth for like $20. I think that's a testament to the bullshit they're putting in it nowadays. Not that it was ever, pure at any point in time.
Pure.
Yeah, but
put some chili pea in that bitch.
Chili pea, there you go. But I also hear, about like people getting blurry vision, from the meth that's around nowadays, and the reason that's happening is because they're actually suffering from nickel poisoning from the gun blowing they're putting in this shit. So I don't know, man. I think that regardless of availability or price, it was just that thing, It was that thing. It was that. A lot of people look at, and like I said in the article, people look at these things as substances. My mentality was they were actually solutions.
Right.
It was a way to escape reality. And the more I could get out of myself and put the rest of the world on pause, the more I'm into that. And, meth absolutely provided that.
Right. Yeah. Yeah, and I think that's what a lot of people don't understand when it comes to addiction. It is that escape that you're looking for. And, that escape is, I guess, different for every person. Yeah. I would say whenever I was at my worst point, I was drinking a lot. And I do drink a lot. I ain't going to say I don't, but I don't drink like I used to. I used to come home every night. I drink a 20 case of beer. Like just sit back and drink 20, 30 beers and then go to bed. And because I did not want, I was in a really bad marriage. I didn't want to deal with it, And so it was the only thing that I could, the way I was coping with it. Not the only thing, but it was the way I was coping with it, And it was getting out of that relationship, gave me the opportunity to examine and reflect and do what I had to do to clean myself up and, make sure I wasn't getting that out of control anymore.
So did you have to was that like a conscious decision you had to make, or was there a weaning off process? Like, what did that look like for you?
Yeah, I was never one that would get the shakes or anything like that. I wasn't that bad. It was all mental for me. Okay. It was all mental and emotional. I was trying to escape emotionally and mentally away from this situation that was so toxic and chaotic that I did not want any part of. And yet I couldn't justify in my own mind leaving because I had children. And so I was fighting this battle constantly over how I was going to handle this situation. And it manifested itself in me getting home and getting shit-faced every night. You know?
Yeah, that's true for a lot of us, man. Like I hear a lot of people, and I'm not trying to lump you in with us junkies. Like, I hope you don't think that, Tommy. But what I'm saying is a lot of the people who come into meetings, they all talk about a couple of things, and one of them that continues to crop up is always feeling out of place, always feeling like they never fit in quite where they stood. And a lot of that could be something to our environments, you know, being in a bad relationship, being in an unhealthy household. Like, you know, that could come in a lot of different forms. But and I don't know how you fix that, right? I don't know how you get ahead of that. Like, beyond, you know, really putting healthy, solid households as a desirable trait in our society, you know. That's about the only way. But here's the other thing, Tommy's like, there's a lot of people who get addicted. They came from great households. They had a wonderful childhood. Like, you know, there's no telling. But
well, and sometimes, I mean, I've known guys, some of the smartest people I've ever known were addicts. And the reason was they were bored. Life was boring.
Yeah.
It was easy for them.
Right.
It offered no challenges. You know, they looked around and everybody was stupider than they were.
Right.
You know? Like, you know, it's a miracle, like somebody like a Michael Malice is as brilliant as he is, that didn't happen to him. Right. You know, he found another addiction though. which is, you know, his reading and all that culture that he's into and this, that, and the other. But you gotta fill that gap with something. You have to make your life interesting in some way.
Right.
And calm those monsters within your head, you know, whatever it is, you have to find a way to do it. Some people find different ways to do it. But addiction, you know, to alcohol or drugs is a very easy, as you say, solution to that problem.
Yeah.
And it's very accessible from a very early age.
Oh, absolutely.
You know, they try to make it sound like people that are addicts wake up one day and decide, I want to be an addict. You know, and it's a process that takes years. Yeah. And, you know, I get frustrated whenever I know somebody that has potential and they clean up and they start doing good, and then they fall right back into it. To me, I find that really extremely frustrating. Because I'm like, you're better than this. You can do better. Like, you have that ability. You showed us for 6 months. You showed us for a year. You showed yourself. You proved to yourself that you're worth more than that life. But they keep getting sucked back in. Do you have any idea how that continues to occur to some people?
There's a lot of things. One of the main reasons is addicts have this tendency to romanticize what it was like, right? When we clean up, we have a very profound recollection of the darkness that we felt and the reason we wanted to get clean. But the longer we stay clean, it's almost like we romanticize how good it was and forget how bad it was. And another, like, so I'm of the garden variety addict that, like, I cannot do anything. I can't drink. I can't smoke a joint. Like, I have tried every which way but loose to, you know, use a mood or mind altering substance and not fuck my life up. And I've proven to myself that that's impossible. So the trap that I could easily fall into, being of that variety, is hanging around people who are able to go drink, or have a beer and take a shot, and that's the only shot they're going to do for the night, or they're only going to drink 2 beers and that's it. And I'll think, well, shit, man, I just wasn't hanging around the right people, and I'll get a beer, and before I know it, man, I'm buying Coke that night, and we're off to the races. So it's a constant, every single day process for me is kind of, and it's not a victim thing. I'm not a victim. It's not like, oh, woe is me, I'm an addict. No, it's just like, hey, like I have to, it's almost like a dietary restriction almost, like there's a certain way that I need to live my life, remind myself of that daily and move forward. One of the things that helps me prevent myself from falling into that forgetfulness is doing the work that I do with the podcast and writing about recovery and talking to other people about recovery. Is keeping that idea that at the forefront of my mind, like, look, this is who you are, this is where you're at. And I've found comfort in that. But I've been that guy that you talked about. Like, I had 7.5 years clean a couple years ago, man. I got married, and on my honeymoon, I got drunk. And I came back from the honeymoon a different person than I went as. Like, you want to talk about guilt, shame, and remorse? Holy shit, dude. I was a circuit speaker for Narcotics Anonymous, established person, and like having to come back and say, I fucked it up, dude. That sucked bad, but we dust ourselves off and we keep going, and learn the lesson. That's the main thing, is that you learn the lesson, and so, yeah.
When how long you been clean now?
January 8th, 2020 is my clean day.
January 8th, 2020?
Yep,
Okay.
So a little over about 16 months now.
Okay. And when you relapsed, was it a period of time, or was it just that one time and you were just like, fuck?
No, I was off to the races, dude.
Yeah.
I mean, it was 4 months.
Really?
I'd been clean for 7.5 years, so like none of the connections that I had were around anymore. I didn't know how to get a hold of them. But I came back, I was drinking heavily. Then I got, I hung around the casinos long enough. I found a plug and got right back into where I was at, dude. And before I knew it, like, it was just dark. It got dark all over again. But, thankfully I'd made some relationships with people who, refused to give up on me. They wouldn't beat me over the head or make me feel bad. They would just call me to talk, and I would answer, because I didn't want anybody to worry.
Yeah. And your marriage survived?
It did. Let me tell you, man, I married a warrior. This woman is tough as nails. She scares me. But that's kind of one of the things that kind of, mixed me up, is because I've always been one to gravitate towards toxic relationships. And my wife is actually not toxic. She's a very healthy, well-adjusted woman. And through compassion and patience, she's kind of showed me, like, hey, look, this is how this works. We're honest with each other. I'm not going to give up on you. When we said I do, that was for life. That wasn't just in that moment. And I'm grateful.
Yeah.
Real grateful.
Yeah, no doubt. That's good. I think, as you said, as we were talking earlier, you need something bigger than the addiction. And that love, that compassion can really root you. And yeah. And I tried, whenever I left my last wife, not my last wife, I'm married again to a much better, more sensible person. We won't get into all that. But
that's awesome.
But she's my wife's a nut job. She grew up in South Africa, she was walking down the streets and got mugged, and she turned around and mugged her mugger. She ain't playing. I don't fuck with this woman. Man. I do not fuck with this woman. She gets mad at me, I'll walk away. I'm like, I don't want no part of this shit. Yeah,
she's from hoods that we've never even heard of.
Right.
That's a different world over there, bro.
Yeah.
That's a different world.
Yeah, no shit, man. I lived in Houston. I've been to almost every major city in the United States. I went to South Africa. I was there for 2 weeks. I pulled my knife 3 times in South Africa. Never had to pull my knife once in America. Never once.
God, dude.
Yeah.
Fuck that.
Yeah, it was crazy, but it's beautiful. It's gorgeous over there.
Yeah.
Like, yeah. So
just take a knife. That's
trade-offs. I brought it. I didn't know I wasn't supposed to.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, but whatever.
Hey, man.
Figure I have it. I might as well carry it.
You damn straight.
So, yeah. If I would have had a gun, I would have pulled it. In some of the situations. but yeah. So. Getting out, I try to reflect on that period of getting out of that relationship, getting out of that toxic relationship. And sometimes I'm like, it just feels like a completely different person. It was so long ago for me that it's like, I don't even remember like what it felt like really to be there. You know, yeah. I can verbalize it. I can tell you what was going on, but to actually like put myself in that position again, I can't do that. I don't even know how I would even go about that. And that's when I started driving over the road. And because I had always driven locally prior. Well, I had a semi-local job at the time. I would go out of town once a week, which wasn't really that bad. But I went over the road, and all I knew to do, because growing up, I always buried myself in music and in poetry to deal with things that were happening, which was a lot of silence, a lot of time alone. And I found myself back writing short stories, writing poetry, and driving 11 hours a day in complete and total silence. Not talking to people for weeks at a time, just driving in complete silence. And I eventually met my wife over Facebook during this period. But it was never intended to be a relationship. It was just somebody, she had been through some really hard relationships. I had been through a really hard relationship. It was just somebody I could bullshit with and laugh with and kind of relate to. And it just kind of evolved naturally. But that being said, I don't think I could figure out that mentality that I was in where I would want to get drunk every night. You know, like there are nights where I want to have like 2 beers, 3 beers after work and be like, all right, I'm fucking done. Or I get home after a week of being on the road and my wife and I just sit around and we drink a case of beer and just bullshit all weekend. You know, that's all we do. She buys herself a case and I buy myself a case and we sit outside by the chickens and we drink beer and we laugh and joke and just have a good time being together, you know? But to put myself back in that situation where I'm trying to kill something with, you know, the alcohol, that just doesn't resonate with my mindset anymore.
Right.
And so what I'm trying to figure out, like in this conversation, is that what that difference is there, and you don't have to get into any details, that's not what I'm asking, obviously. Is there something within you that lingers that you're still trying to figure out and trying to solve a problem that you've never been able to solve?
So, I put it like this. A good day in recovery feels like I'm finally becoming a version of myself I always wanted to be. A bad day in recovery feels like I'm running away from a version of myself I was always meant to be. And that's kind of that thing. It's a shifting perspective. It depends on the day.
Yeah.
You know, you're talking about driving in silence. That was you processing the emotions, processing the situation in a healthy way. You know, that's how you're supposed to do it. Me, on the other hand, you know, my mentality is, oh shit, I don't like this feeling. I have to change it right now. This is my second marriage. My first marriage, thank God Narcotics Anonymous was around at the time because, like, dude, I was going to detoxes and rehabs like every single night of the week, like talking to people, working with other addicts, speaking at meetings. Like, I plugged in. I got out of myself. I had to. But that was a shining symbol, and in which I did good things with that time. You know, I didn't go out and use, but it was another version of me running away, right? Instead of processing and working through it. So
it's a instant gratification.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes. Yeah.
And
I don't like how I feel right now. Let me change it. Hit that oh shit button. You know.
So do you think that is the delayed gratification has been something over the years that has been going away, like in culture in general? So do you think that the culture is conditioning people to be addicts more so today than it was previously?
I'm really glad you asked this because this is something I find myself thinking about quite a bit. And I actually do. I do think, maybe not by design, but it is absolutely a circumstance, or, you know, that is the cause, this is the effect, right? This is exactly what's happening right now with, my camera moved, sorry about that.
Yeah, but, I saw that. That's cool. I thought it was pretty cool. I was like, whoa.
Oh, shit.
There's an earthquake in Oklahoma City again.
Yeah, I just set up this little, my podcast studio. It's I got like loose wires and shit everywhere.
Dude, I have to hook up for every podcast. You should say, yeah, I have a mixer between my feet right now, so it doesn't get too hot being on my dash. I got my mic in my hand. I got my laptop sitting on my lap, so the vent can blow on it and keep it cool. Like I plug it. It takes me 10 minutes to set up. I know exactly how long.
That's awesome, man.
So if I stop my truck 15 minutes before I have an appointment. I set up. I send the Zoom link, and I just wait. I'm like, all right.
Okay, so here's an example how instant gratification has become something so commonplace in our society. Let's look at Amazon. Most people have a Prime membership. Okay, you'll look at something, and you'll see the same product from two different suppliers. One supplier isn't Prime. Let's say it's $14 for a widget. Well, that $14 and free shipping, it will take next week until you get your widget. But the Prime one is $17, and it'll be available for you tomorrow. I guarantee you that Prime one gets worn out. People buy that Prime one. They want it tomorrow. They want it now, you know? And you look at our society, everything's at the speed of light. I mean, we're connected more than ever before. So for that to bleed over into some of our other decisions in life, it's not hard to see where addictive personalities can kind of like run rampant with instant gratification.
I'm sorry. I don't know if you're looking at addictive personalities running rampant, or if you're looking at a situation of nurture, right? So people are being taught to be addicted to that instant dopamine hit, that you're being trained to be an addict.
Yeah, that's true. Well, especially with like social media being what it is, you know. Hey, we all like getting likes on our tweets. We all like, you know, people retweeting our stuff or commenting or whatever, getting a new follower. Like,
that's why I like being in our group, because I'm finally getting likes. Oh, hey, look, somebody likes me.
Same here, man. I'm like, oh shit. I'm a big deal, man.
Yeah,
Big
six likes, I'm going viral. Remember that old commercial? 100 likes on my selfie.
Yeah. You're going how to deal with fame because I got 10 likes on a tweet.
Yeah, right.
But I think it's actually, how do we deal with that though? Like, how do we approach that? Like, you would have to regress. Technology would have to go back, in order for us to reverse the effects of that.
Think it puts a bigger and broader responsibility on parents to explain to their children the difference between reality and this conceptual reality that they're witnessing online.
Yeah.
And unfortunately, as social media has become more and more viable and more almost necessary in life in a lot of ways, it seems like parenting is not as hands-on. As technology has progressed, you can see that you have, they used to call the television back in the day, I don't know if you ever heard this, but they would call it the electronic babysitter. Because you could just sit your kid in front of it, let them watch Barney for the next hour, and you could go clean the house and do what you needed to do.
Right.
And so you didn't have to be so hands-on. And that free time, that technology has allowed parents to do the things that they need to do or want to do, or their hobbies or their desires, and that it is addicted. It has gotten the parents addicted to having this electronic babysitter that's always there for their child, and they're not teaching their child that this dopamine hit that they're experiencing isn't reality. This isn't real. This is some virtual world that you're experiencing, and that reality happens off screen, not on screen.
Yeah, I mean, and
they've even done studies of the human mind while watching movies, and your mind is reacting exactly the same way as it does whenever you're interacting in life.
Wow.
Yeah. So you have to be very careful about that distorted reality.
This is kind of one of the things that I need to do a little bit better at, is that sometimes I can find myself shifting into a position where instead of looking at life experiences as life experiences, I'll look at it as social media updates, right? Like, oh, I'm at this beautiful mountain range. Like, instead of appreciating it, I'm pulling out my phone, taking a picture, to post it on social media. I don't like that about me, it might be about time for me to take a little bit of hiatus, and just post updates on like the podcast, but kind of take a step back from wanting to put every little thing out there. You know what I mean? But it's hard. It's tough, man. You want that highlight reel playing just like everybody else. You want to show off what's going on in your world, make yourself seem more interesting than you actually are. At least for me, I mean, that was one of the main things that kept me out there for so long and not wanting to come into recovery, is because I was so afraid of being bored. I was afraid of having a mundane life, and I think maybe I still kind of worry about that on occasion, Maybe I try to front
insignificant.
That's the word. That's it. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah, insignificant. You want somebody to make you feel like you belong and like you're important, like you're special.
Yeah.
But you have yourself that wonderful wife.
I do.
And you can do, like, you notice, I don't know if you've noticed, but I disappear a lot from Twitter for sometimes days. I'll be tweeting, and then I'll get home, and I don't really give a shit about my fucking phone. My wife gets mad at me because when I'm home, I'll even leave my phone at home when I go to the store. She gets mad. She's like, what if something happens? What if I need something? Sorry. Like, the last thing on my mind whenever I'm home with my wife is that phone. I just don't care about it.
Right.
You know? Or sometimes, sometimes I'll just be in a mood and I'll just turn everything off. I'll turn all the podcasts off, all the audiobooks off. I'll turn Twitter off. I'll put my phone down and I'm just going to drive. I'm just going to chill, Right. And so I found myself not being as active on Twitter or Facebook or any of these other social media platforms as a lot of other people, and it's because I find them boring, right? You know what I find interesting is going outside and tending to the chickens and playing with my dog and gardening and developing something with my wife. We're developing the agriculture together, working on the house together, painting a room, whatever we're doing. And we're always, I think where a lot of people, and maybe this is something that you can utilize, but I think what a lot of people, once they get married, forget to do is to build with their spouse. And this is why the divorce rate is so high. A lot of people look at marriage as the end in and of itself. But marriage isn't an end. It's a beginning. It's a beginning to building a life. So what is that life that you, not necessarily you, but you and your wife want together? And my wife and I have sat down and talked about that. We've decided what we wanted. And so we consciously are working towards that. It's slower than we'd like, but we are consciously always talking about what the next step is and how to get to where we want to be. Because even though things pop up in our lives and we get distracted, we get frustrated, we fight like any other married couple, we have that foundation of this is where we're going and this is why we're doing this together. So all that other shit can be thrown by the wayside at the end of the day, because ultimately there's a goal in mind and we're both working together to reach the same destination.
That's good stuff, man. I like that. Here's the thing, Tommy. So everything I know about life, I learned from watching other people. You know what I mean? So like hearing about stuff like that, like that's just not something I knew growing up. My parents fought like cats and dogs. Like they were in a terrible relationship. They shouldn't have stayed married for as long as they did. So like my conception, my idea of what a healthy relationship looks like has come from, the examples that my wife has taught me, but also watching people like you, successfully navigating this thing called life, with a partner. So thanks a lot for telling me about that, because that's a solid point, man.
I fucked up bad 2 times before this one, so don't.
Hey, man, that's how we learn, right?
And my parents, they have a great relationship, and I've always looked at their relationship. I'm like, I want that. I want to be 60 years old and still pinching my wife on the ass and laughing and having a good time.
Right.
How do you do that? Right. That's what I want. And the ultimately what I've discovered is that we're communicating, we're working together, and we have a set destination in mind, And this came to me. People are going to make fun of me for this. Actually, I'm not going to get into the detail of that. I'll tell you off. I'll tell you off. I used to be into listening to a lot of motivational speakers, and there was one guy I ran across, and I would listen to him all the time. His name was Les Brown, and he was just entertaining. He was just great. He was just he was inspired and motivated, and it was just this makes me feel good. Hearing this message makes me feel good. So I played it for my first wife, and she was like, yeah, I like that. So we used to make a routine out of listening to him, and our relationship was really good. We were really close, and we had 3 kids together. And one day we were trying to figure out, we're like, I can't keep doing what I'm doing and see that we're going to progress in a way that is going to leave us in a prosperous situation. I don't foresee that as being a possibility. So I joined the military. Huge mistake. But we lost that connection while I was gone. And we ended up getting divorced. Right? So what I drew from that was there was that commonality, that common goal, that common desire to have that motivation put in our lives and have those set desires in front of us. That commonality was really a strong bond. It was something that we could build upon, right?
Yeah.
So you can't build upon the argument you had last night. And if you do build upon that argument you had last night, it's only going to be bad. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
So though I failed the second marriage as well, whenever I got with Beatrix, I sat her down and I said, this is important to me and this is something we have to consciously focus on because this is important to me. And I think this actually means something. And I'm not sure what it means, but I think it actually means something. And so we consciously discuss that foundation as being we're working towards something together. And both of us, I mean, I get scatterbrained just like anybody else. So does she. But you always have that other person to anchor you and pull you back in and say, this is actually what we're doing here. So this is what we need to focus on. Yeah, you fucked up. I forgive you. Let's go on about our business.
Yeah.
You know? And so it's a team effort there.
It's funny you mentioned that, man. When I relapsed, and I mean, Tommy, I was gone. Like, you know, I'm not I don't do well with that. I don't make it a spectacle. Like, I disappear, and my wife would send me that song. I can't remember the name of the song, and she's going to kill me for that whenever she listens to this, but the lyrics were, the house don't fall when the bones are good. You know, and she would send me that. She would say, you know, like, we have a solid foundation here. Just come home, you know, and that's still something that, like, that reverberates with me when you talk about that, you know, that foundation being solid, because it is, you know, we have a solid relationship, and, you know, no matter, you know, we just moved into a new house, we got this old house we're trying to remodel, and I mean, there's stresses and stuff like that, but at the end of the day, we still have each other, and we're working towards that same goal. But I'm glad that you verbalized that, because I can kind of run that through my head and focus on that a little bit more. But yeah, good song. Wish I could remember the name of it. She's gonna kill me.
Please don't kill him. We love Drew. All right, man. Well, I think we've covered quite a bit here, and we've gotten pretty deep.
Yeah, we have, man.
You have anything you think we should cover before we get off here?
Yeah, just one thing. If you're listening to this, if you're listening to this and you're struggling with addiction, or you're struggling with alcoholism, and you've been looking for a sign to quit, this is it. You can absolutely make it through the next 24 hours. All you need to do is just focus on where you're standing, and that's in today. Fuck yesterday and fuck tomorrow. They don't matter. If you need somebody to talk to, reach out to me. You can find me at clean_podcast or at LibertyDrew84. Like Tommy said, I'm the host of the Clean Libertarian Podcast. There's quite a few stories of recovery on there. Find it, listen to it, see if you can't find some identification in that. But you are worth it, and you can make it through this, and I believe in you.
And just in case somebody's listening that's not on Twitter, because as much as we think the whole world revolves around Twitter, it doesn't.
It doesn't.
You can also email me, and I'll make sure to get you in touch with Drew. And
Awesome.
My email is tommysalmons@gmail.com or tommy@libertarianinstitute.org. Either one of those, I'll get the email. So yeah, feel free to reach out. No one's judging you here. I think this was fairly vulnerable territory we tread into, and hopefully somebody hears this that needs to hear it, man.
Absolutely.
Plug everything you got to plug, Bubba.
Just, I got a YouTube channel, Clean Libertarian Podcast. I think it's Clean Libertarian Podcast. Just look up Clean Libertarian Podcast. You'll find the YouTube. Damn it, I just started that like 10 episodes ago. I'm still struggling, man. I make content. If people hear it, they hear it. If they don't, no big deal. I'm glad to get people's story of recovery out there. My wife does run a Facebook page for it. You can look for that. And like I said, I already dropped the handles on Twitter. So you can hope you find it and hear something that you like,
All right, Drew. Well, let me stop this recording here, Bubba.
Said you're just a slave. All your good intentions took you to your grave. Your pride is how they killed you. With the flag you wave just like a fool. They promised you a mountain, gifted you a stone. They demanded that you throw it into your neighbor's home, and then seize all that they worked for and give it to the throne just like a tool. Well, as we all just stand in line and glorify new ways of being cruel, it seems to me humanity is not something that they're teaching us in school. They dumb us down all around, propaganda, their pollution. They set a cage up on the stage, a facade for all solution. They build a wall, block them all from this mental institution. It's insane. Now they're writing their own rule books and they're crossing all their T's. They're fashioning their people to all wear beggars' knees. If you want a clean drink of water, well, you must say pretty please. It's all a game. As we all just stand in line and justify these crimes done in our names, it seems to me authority and tyranny are both one and the same. And sacrificial right just like we should. Cause this world needs a cleansing to burn away the shame and destroy all the remnants of those who are to blame. And we'll stack them up like cordwood, watch them sizzle on the flames for good. Well, as we all just stand in line waiting for some kind of Robin Hood, our liberty will never be until our right to freedom is understood. Thank you.